Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We from Group 4 will explain the material about regional and social dialects, gender and age, ethnicity, and social network. And I will explain about regional and social dialects. Regional variation. In different regions of a country, there can be some variation in the language used. This variation can be in the pronunciation, the vocabulary, or even grammar, but it's very apparent that the language is the same language. E.g., the Scots speak English distinctively different from speakers in England. International variants are American English, British English, Singapore English, New Zealand English, Australian English, South African, and the last Indian English. The next, intranational and intracontinental. Intranational within the same country. For example, Yorkshire, Lancashire in England. And intracontinental within the same continent. E.g., in the United States of America, the Southerners are easily identified from the Northerners. Social dialects. Social groups in society are not only distinguished based on the area where the groups were staying, but also can be discriminated on the basis of social conditions. Thus, social groups within region can still be grouped by group again by the social condition for of each individual. Difference are social groups that can be divided. And the last types of dialects. There are the regional dialects and social dialects. Regional dialects is the dialects whose characteristics are limited by space, often called dialect area. The dialect is usually grown in a particular area, meaning that people outside the region will not understand the dialect in question. And social dialects is the dialect spoken by a particular social groups. For example, people in the cardboard definitely have different dialects with people outside in the palace, or people in the community office dialect definitely different from those that exist in the market community. Okay, the next will be explained by Meldini.
Okay, I will explain about gender and age. Sociolinguistics have found that women speak differently compared to men. It is claimed women are more linguistically polite than men. Besides that, women and men emphasize different speech function. Gender exclusive speech different, highly structured communities. Women and men do not speak in exactly the same way as each in community. For example, in the Amazon Indians, the language used by a child's mother is different from her father's language because men marry outside their own tribe and each tribe is distinguished by different language. There are communities where the language is shared by women and men, but particular linguistic features occur only in the woman's speech or only in the man's speech. These features are usually small difference in pronunciation or word shape or morphology. In some language, like Japanese, there are a lot of difference between the vocabulary item used by women and men. The difference are more a matter of degree of formality or politeness than gender. The men's form are restricted to casual context and considered macho or coarse, while the women form are used by everyone in public context. If a community is very hierarchical, For instance, and within each level of the hierarchy, men are more powerful than women, then linguistic difference between the speech of women and men may be just one dimension of more extensive difference reflecting the social hierarchy as a whole. For example, in Bengali society, a wife cannot call her husband by using his name. A wife should address by using the term nokotro. And the next is gender preferential speech features, social dialect research. In Western communities, women and men do not use completely different forms. They use different quantities of frequencies of the same forms. For example, women use more ing pronunciation and fewer in pronunciation than men in the words like swimming and typing. The third is gender in social class. The linguistic features which differ in the speech of women and men in Western communities are usually features which also distinguish the speech of people from different social classes. In our social class, men use more vernacular forms than women. In the lowest and the highest social group, the women's speech is closer to the men in the same group than to the women in other groups. Across all social groups, women generally use more standard grammatical form than men. And the fourth, explanation of women's linguistic behavior. Four different explanations were suggested. Why do women use more standard form than men? The first is the social explanation. Women use more standard speech form than men because they are more status conscious than men. And women are more aware of the fact that the way they speak signals their social background or social status in the community. The second, woman's role as guardian of society values. A second explanation for the fact that women use more standard forms than men points to the way society tends to expect better behavior from women than from men. Women are designated the role of modeling correct behavior in the community. The third is subordinate groups must be polite. A third explanation, which has been proposed for women's use of more standard form, is that people who are subordinate must be polite. Children are expected to be polite to adults. Women as a subordinate group, it is argued, must must avoid offending men, so they must speak carefully and politely. By using more standard speech form, women are looking after their own needs to be valued by the society. By using standard form, a woman is protecting her face and she is also avoiding offense to others. And the fourth, vernacular forms express much more. One answer which has been suggested to the question, why don't men use more standard form, is that men prefer vernacular forms because they carry much connotation of masculinity and toughness. Men regard vernacular form positively and value them highly, even if they don't always openly admit to doing so. And the standard forms tend to be associated with female values and femininity. Okay, the next is some alternative explanation. How are women categorized? Researchers often use the women's husband's occupation as their major criterion to differ their speech function, but the fact that not all women marry men from the same social class has led to the miscategorization. Women tend to use standard forms possibly because of the standard form is an appropriate form which reflected their social background accurately. And the second, The influence of the interviewer and the context. Interviewer can also give a big effect to the context. Women tend to be more cooperative conversationalists than men, and men tend to be less responsive to the speech of the others and to their conversational needs. Okay, the next material is about age. The first is age-graded features of speech. Research has proved that speech can differ the age of a speaker. It can be divided into two aspects. The first is voice pitch. Male voice generally sound lower in pitch than women's. An adult voice also sound deeper than children's. However, this can be overlapped between women and men as there will always be some women whose natural speaking pitch is deeper than the men in a community. For the social and culture and factors, it is more masculine for men to speak with a lower pitch voice. So this is one of the reasons why young boys often develop these masculine features by using vernacular forms. And the next is vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar. The frequency of swear words was minimized as people more into adulthood. Slang can also act as one of the aspects which reflect person age. Current slang of young people may sound odd to older person. It signals the membership of a particular group according to their speech. The next is age and social dialect data. A common pattern shows that the use of vernacular forms is high in childhood and adolescence. The usage steadily reaches people approach middle age when social pressures to conform are greatest. Vernacular usage gradually increases again in old age as social pressures reduce. And the last is age grading and language change when a linguistic change is spreading through a community. There will a regular increase or decrease in the use of the linguistic form over time. For an innovation, a form on the increase, this will show up a graph as a low use of form by older people in high use among younger people. For a form which is disappearing, just the opposite will be true. Younger people will use less of the form and older people more. Okay, that's all my explanation. The next material will be explained by Putri Fatimatuzzarah.
I will explain about ethnicity. Ethnicity is considered to be shared characteristics such as culture, language, religion, and tradition, which contribute to a person or group identity. Many ethnic groups use distinctive language with their ethnic identity. Ethnic groups often respond to this situation by using the majority language in way which signal their ethnic identity. There are three examples about ethnicity. For the first, African American Vernacular English or AAVE. It has some features which do not occur in standard American English, and linguistic differences as a symbol of ethnicity, and they have absence of copula B. For example, is "she very nice," not "she's very nice." The second is British Black English. The English of those who speak minority language such as Gujarat, Punjabi, and Turki. and pathois used as symbol of ethnic identity. The third is Maori New Zealanders. The greeting routines exchanged between Maori people, even in informal contexts, are similarly descriptive. Next will be explained by Muhammad Aulia.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Aulia Fathurrahman. Now I would like to explain about social network in sociolinguistics. The definition of social network is a social network is a website that allow people with similar interests to come together and share information, such as videos, photos, or the media is Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, WhatsApp, and many more. Social network in the field of social linguistics describe the structure of a particular speech community. Social networks are composed of a web of ties by Leslie Milroy between individual, and the structure of a network will vary depending on the types of connection. It is composed of social network theory used by sociolinguistics usually. Posit that social network and the interaction between members within the network are a driving force behind language change. Ya, sepanjang kayak sejalannya waktu pasti bakal berubah gitu si bahasanya, seperti itu. Network in social linguistics refer to the pattern or informal relationship people are involved in a regular basis. There are two technical which have proved very useful for describing different types of network. There are two types. There is the density and complexity. Density, it refers to whether members of a person network are touched with each other. Example, Tom's friends and relation know and interact regularly with each other, as well as with him. He clearly belongs to a dense network. This is indicated by the various connections between Mike and Tom and Uncle Bob in figure H.2 on the journal. Complexity, a measure of the range of different types of transaction people are involved in with different individuals. There are two types again from complexity. First, uniplex relationship. Uniplex relationship is one where the link with other person is in only one or area. You could be linked to someone else only because you work together. Example, you might only play badminton or football player and never meet in any other context. If most transactions in a community are of this type, the network would be characterized as uniplex. The second type is multiplex relationship. By contrast, involve interaction with others along several dimensions. A workmate might also be someone you play tennis with and meet at church regularly. Example, Tom's network is multiplex, since the people he works with are also his mates, his relation, and his neighbor. Nah, two, there was a feature of social network. And two, I would like to explain about communities as of a practice and construction of social identity. The concept community of practice has been adapted by some linguists to permit a focus on social categories like this, which makes more sense to the participant than abstract categories such as class and gender. Communities of practice develop around the activists, which group members engage in together and their shared goals and attitude. We all belong to many communities of practice which share particular goals and ways of something. Family, like a family, sport team, work group, hiking group, drama club, church choir, and so on, and many more. Some may be relatively long term, others, such as a group organizing, a club, a party, a dance, a school, fair, or conference, will be more temporary. So, communities of people develop around the activities which group members engage in together, and their shared objective and attitudes. First, linguistic patterns described by social linguistics correlate to macro-level categories such as gender, age, ethnicity, and class. Two, the second thing, the concept of community of practice is aimed at understanding the complexities of belonging a certain group. The conclusion about the social network is sociolinguistics need to describe the linguistic pattern that correlate with the macro-level abstract categories of class like age, ethnic, gender, and many more. But for describing the detail of complexity of what goes on in the day-to-day interaction between individuals, the concept of social network and communities of practice are particularly useful. They allow us to examine the ways in which individuals use linguistic research in a dynamic and constructive way to express various social identity. Identity like draw on macro level social categories such as a class, a gender, as well as a micro level categories such as new gang member or feisty friend or youngest child in the family.
Okay, that's all the presentation from our group. We apologize if there are mistakes because we are still learning. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.